I have to wonder what could I have been if I hadn't been born premature, if I hadn't gotten those defects in the beginning. Everything's different. Everything is.
I'm autistic, that's it.
So I've never been formally diagnosed with anything, like with a piece of paper that says you have this thing.
I have inattentive ADD.
I'm disabled. So plenty of people problems, now here are just mine.
People don't really talk to me about my disabilities very much because they don't often know that I have them because I don't talk about it. Because either I'm self-conscious or I'm doubting that it's not that bad.
I only really tell people about my disability if they're very close with me, or if it's like a setting where it's, for instance, like in special education or like an autistic group, or for example interacting with the students, services for students with disabilities, and then staff.
I don't know, I'm a fidgety person.
Anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, so that means I'm anxious about, well, everything. Talking to people, getting an interview, sometimes even just asking for little things like asking for food, asking for help, anything and everything you can imagine. It makes me anxious, and it's really hard to fight that sometimes.
A lot of it's tied up with social anxiety. Like, I don't talk to people. I don't start conversations with people. If people try to start conversations with me, I don't always respond to them. I don't know how to I have one strategy for making friends, and it's to join clubs. And if I can't do that, then I don't know what I'm doing. I've had some therapists tell me, oh, you just need to stop worrying so much. Or it seems like you don't enjoy thinking about this, and you acknowledge that it's probably not true, so just stop thinking about it. You can acknowledge that something is probably distorted thinking, but still feel it emotionally.
If there's a cure for this, I don't want it, I don't need it.
Autism spectrum is helpful in the sense that there are many different possible symptoms that they can appear in many different ways, and it's a spectrum in the sense that there's a huge variation how that can appear in individuals.
I just have a lot of formulas for things, like, oh, this is how I dress for this type of weather, this is how I have this specific conversation, and then social issues.
There are autistics who can only wear a few specific clothes because anything else is physically unbearable because of the texture. And then for me personally, I cannot handle loud music in an enclosed area most of the time. I have had meltdowns because of that in the past. The other side of that sensitivity to music is that I'm very good at picking up lyrics in a song, more so than neurotypical people around me.
I have some sensory issues, mostly with noise. I'm not great with loud noises. I jump super easy. I get freaked out.
In the autistic community, people hate that a lot of times there's an attitude of cure autism. And so I remember one time when I experienced that in person, I tried to speak against it. That person basically was like, well, you're high functioning, so you don't know what it's like to be low functioning. My son is, and I'm like, it sounds like you don't know what it's like to be low functioning either. Functionally, I feel like they do nothing but to divide and to dehumanize and invalidate.
I talked to a neurologist who said, the good news is you're smart and you have ADD. If you're stupid and you have ADD, you're screwed.
ADHD, the inattentive type, so that basically means I'm both hyperactive and inattentive, but I tend to be more inattentive and hyperactive. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, you can come and track me down and ask me about it.
ADD presents typically in an inattentive form, which is the daydreamy type where, for example, I remember very vividly before I was medicated in elementary school, hearing an announcement from the principal about a carnival coming up. And in my head, I was listening. I was trying to listen to what the principal was saying. I respected Dr. Tokomoto immensely, and but I was distracted by a flyer that was sitting in front of me, and I was reading it, and the narration in my head as I read the page was louder than the announcement over the intercom. And so I could hear that she was talking, but it sounded like an episode of Charlie Brown when the adults are talking on the phone, and it's like, wow, 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 wow. But it was meaningless to me because I was absorbed in what I was reading. And that's how I can best explain what ADD is.
Wait, can you say that last part again, sorry? I was born with weakened nerves in my temporal lobes, so because of that, my hearing level is already much worse than what it would have been. So my hearing level is considered moderate to severe. So for me, you could probably shoot a gun right next to my ear and it wouldn't have much effect on me. I have to ask people twice, 3 times to understand them. I mean, somebody asked me point blank if I eavesdrop, and I said yes, and they had a shocked expression on their face, and I was just chuckling to myself because I was like, you can't teach a mostly deaf kid that's not okay to hear things. It doesn't make sense.
X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
Another disability I have is dyslexia, but it's a form of dyslexia that not a lot of people know about, and it's called dyscalculia, or I've also heard it referred to as dysgraphia. And it is quite literally this form of dyslexia is specific to numbers. And everybody likes to say, oh, I hate math, and it might be in vogue to say, oh, sorry, I'm dyslexic with numbers. But really, dyscalculia presents for me in struggling to count sets of numbers and having to count them like 5 times and feeling like an idiot when I was asked to add or subtract simple equations in front of the class that anyone should be able to do, but I would second guess myself and feel super anxious and feel super on the spot just for easy tasks. And I might even get them wrong because I would put so much pressure on myself.
Down once more to the dungeons of my black despair.
I also have had times when I was depressed, and I had it in a couple different flavors. I had one kind where I was just really tired and numb all the time. I felt like I had no emotions and I just didn't care about anything. I was just kind of existing to pass the time. And then I've also had ones where I was sad a lot of the time. Like I'd feel really lonely, or I'd like feel sad or cry a lot. But without the same like numb, dead feeling.
Chronic long-term depression, I got that as a result of many years of bullying and social ostracization. So because of that, I may sound like I'm happy, I may sound cheerful and joyful, but there's always a little part of me that is used to being ostracized, alone, and afraid all the time.
Everything will be just fine. Everything will be alright, alright.
I cope with things in a few different ways. I drink a lot of tea. That's not really a device, but it's a strategy. There's tea for everything. There's caffeinated tea if you have no energy. There's like chamomile or calming teas if you're really stressed out. And it's just comforting to have a warm beverage.
Vibrating alarm clock, instead of making sounds, it vibrates. It produces basically what the effect of is an earthquake to actually get me up in the morning. Without that, I don't even know how I'd ever give up in the morning, because I can't hear any alarm. I mean, great, it's set at the sound of a gunshot. That won't work for me.
Music. a lot of it. I'll oftentimes listen to music if I'm feeling overwhelmed, or sometimes to block out noise to keep from getting overwhelmed sensory-wise.
I listen to music a lot as a coping mechanism. Like if I'm walking around, I'll listen to it so I don't have to like pay attention to the people around me, and I can kind of ignore them and be doing my own thing.
When my chronic depression kicks in, sometimes the only thing that can help me get out of it is just funny cat videos.
Able people oftentimes don't even realize if they're being discriminatory, but they are. Like expecting people to constantly make eye contact, for example, that's discriminatory.
What I wish people knew is that more people have them than you think. That they're more common than you would think. That no one, we all pretend to be normal, but no one really is. That we're all imperfect, we're all flawed, we're all broken in our own ways. And if people recognize their own disabilities and other disabilities more readily, I think it would be just easier for us to accept people in general.
People need to understand that disability is a natural part of the human spectrum, and treating it as unnatural is just causing a lot of problems.
I wish that people knew that disability was more than just, wheelchairs, which is what most people think of. A lot of people who have a disability don't even realize that they're disabled because they either don't realize they have it or don't think it counts. Like a lot of people don't think mental illness counts as a disability, but it totally can.
What I find really important is that we need to encourage to have disabled children be knowing that there's a community out there, that it's not just about learn to act like an able person. There is a community of disabled people out there. You can join that.
Part of my journey as a student has been to realize and accept that I am who I am because of and in spite of my disabilities, and I can't be hard on myself for things that are not fully in my control. I'm not using my disability as a crutch by saying that, but I'm acknowledging that it's okay and it's important to love myself in spite of and in celebration of all the things that make me different.
I expect people to just come out and say, oh, you're disabled, that's too bad for you, it sucks for you, ha ha ha, whatever. But more often what I see is that people actually respect you more, if anything. They actually are like, wow, you do all that and you manage to do this stuff too, that's impressive. So, I don't know, so sometimes I feel like actually telling people your struggle, like your disabilities and stuff, actually makes them respect you more, makes you almost more human, more awesome.